Welcome to Tyrompers No Limit podcast.
What is going on, you beautiful boys and girls? Thank you so much for joining Tyrompers No Limit podcast. We are so fired up today. We have the amazing Ginger coming to us from an undisclosed location in, I think, Costa Rica. This is the most beautiful backdrop I've ever seen for a guest on the podcast. This is pretty amazing, guys. She recently just moved her whole family from Canada under an alleged dictatorship. We'll get more into that to a free land of Costa Rica. So I'm excited to hear about that. She and her husband have an amazing YouTube channel with almost 100,000 subscribers. I'm going to plug that below. You guys got to check this out. They're really hilarious. She's one of the kindest, most beautiful souls that I've ever met in real life, or not in real life, but on Twitter, and now getting to chat with her in person. She sent my family like 57 board games when they were moving from Canada. We play these board games all the time. I think of you all the time. And guys, here's the big thing too. We're going to have a respectful dialogue about, we might have some differences in faith and religion and some of these things, but guess what? We still have a mutual respect. We still like each other. And so without any further ado, welcome to the podcast, Miss Ginger. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. With that introduction, I feel like I should leave now.
You know, I like to hype things, right? I'm pretty high energy and I just had a little coffee.
I've already had two, but I feel like I should have another. In this country, it's easy to enjoy coffee through the whole day because it's so good here. And actually, the property where we're staying right now, this is an Airbnb we're in while we wait for our place to be ready for us to move into. And they have a huge coffee plantation back just behind these plants. They make their own coffee here. And I got so lucky because the owner invited me to come in October when they do the harvest to help work on harvesting the coffee.
That is going to be amazing. Holy cow. It's going to be wild.
Super excited.
That's going to make for some good content when you and your husband are just super wired there.
Well, I mean, you mentioned our music reactions channel, but I also have a channel of my own where I do my renovations, my car repair, my cooking. So with our move to Costa Rica now, I have a whole bunch of content lined up that I'm going to start sharing for like we're doing homesteading here. So I'm going to have a whole pile of stuff to share. I'm very excited.
So can you give us a little bit, like I assume most people will know you that watch this, but can you just give maybe like a 2-3 minute introduction? And then I want to get into moving to Costa Rica, what led to all that and that.
Oh, an introduction of myself?
Yeah, just like, hey, if somebody doesn't know you, how would you describe yourself in a minute?
Oh,
you know? Not to put you on.
Dork. That's dork is the first word that comes to mind. I pretty much am, right? Like I'm that person that always asks the strange and awkward questions. But I'm super curious all the time. I have absolutely no shame at all. So I don't care about getting dirty. I don't care about like I debated whether or not I should wear a shirt today because I figured you'd probably be shirtless. I thought I'd be overdressed, but
we'd probably get like from YouTube if we both showed up shirtless. So thank you for not.
I wore half a shirt.
I actually did the first few of my podcast shirtless, and then I got some feedback from like everybody that I love, and they're like, "Dude, like you got to throw a shirt on." So now I dress up. I rep the Zuby Team Zuby gear. I know you're a Zuby fan too.
Oh yeah, I have the OK Dude t-shirt.
That's a great one too.
I love it. Yeah, it is good. Yeah. So yeah, I love music. I'm on my third husband, so I have all the red flags, right? Like I have the red flag hair, right? I have the red flag past. But like we have a ton of kids and we have a ton of fun doing everything we do, right? I love exploring life. I love people. I'm that person. I'm like you, but like half, because you're like the most cheerleader it's possible for a human being to be. I'm like close to that. I aspire.
I think, you know, even when I had zero Twitter following, you were one of the first people I connected with. I told you I'm going to try not to have my just like boy fan, you know, come in here and like fanboy today. But I had no following. You were one of the first people I met that I realized, dude, Twitter is an awesome place. Like you're just so nice. You're like encouraging. You're saying have a great day, you know, and it's like,
yeah. I love doing that.
Yeah.
And I love our crowd, right? Like you and I, we share a lot of the same crowd. I love that our crowd is like that. It's one of the biggest, lots of people, when I first started on Twitter, I'd heard all the horror stories about what a dumpster fire Twitter was, right? And there are places in Twitter that are like that. Like every once in a while, especially because I'm involved in politics too. So that's where you see a lot of it start to well up. right? And it can be like that, but I got so lucky because the first few people that I connected with and got to know, like Ed Lattimore was one of my first follows, and it was such a good choice because from him branched out so many good people, and I suddenly cultivated a circle of people that were just so amazing. It made it Twitter is one of my favorite places to be now, right? Like my husband and I will sit side by side with our phones and we'll chat with our friends on Twitter.
It is amazing though. It's like
together.
It's no other community on earth where I think you can find this awesome group of like thousands of people that will encourage you, that will cheer for you, that will say, think bigger, you got this. And not only say like, hey, you know, well, I feel like Instagram's like, look how good looking I am. But on Twitter, they're like, hey, I can help you get in better shape. Here's how. Do these couple. Everybody wants to teach and help and all grow together. It's like no other place on earth that I've found.
Oh my God. Yeah. Every time I've run into a problem with something, I'll put it out there and ask a question. I'll get a million answers. I got a great sauerkraut recipe the other day because I asked for one. When I had trouble doing renovations on my old house, I tagged my friend Jimmy, who is one of those, he's a painting and coatings guy. And I got advice from him how to fix like a windowsill that was rotted and like stuff like that.
Amazing. Guys, we're going to tag that. We're going to put that sauerkraut recipe below too in the comments. So we can share that love with everybody, right? Everybody needs a good sauerkraut recipe here.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah, that's amazing. So can you talk me through kind of you and your husband, you lived in Canada, was it your whole life, I assume?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was born there.
And so how long ago did you uproot, and was it hard to leave the poutine? And do you still say all the time?
We left at the end of November.
Okay.
The poutine has been greatly missed. I can't lie.
Yeah.
I've made it once since we got here, but the fact of the matter is Costa Rica has many, many wonderful qualities, but cheese variety is not one of them. Actually, one of the hardest things about moving here was losing access to materials for charcuterie. Because one of my big things on Twitter was my charcuterie boards. I would do charcuterie at least once a week, and I'd make them super elaborate and then I'd share them with everybody. But that was one of our favorite meals. You can't get cured meat here, and it's not very good, whatever you can find. And cheese is like, it's weird that you can't get good cheese here.
That would be a hard adjustment. I love cheese. Cheese is probably my favorite. To be honest, I don't think I could go a week without cheese.
Well, we made plans to get goats, and my husband is already making plans on making his own cheese for this reason, because we're having a really hard time living without cheese variety. So we're going to start making our own.
I love that. So you guys had this, was this always in your vision to maybe move to a different country, do a homestead, or how did this come about, I guess?
So we always wanted a homestead. Our original plan when we started talking about future plans, like once we got all the kids out of the house, because we had 6 kids between us. So yeah, everything revolved around them. You know what that's like, right?
Yeah, right.
But when we made plans for when they were gone, what were we going to do next? The plan was always to go somewhere very remote. We'd thought about really, really remote North Ontario, like 500 kilometers north of Thunder Bay, kind of remote. We wanted to pick something completely God's country, totally unincorporated. So, you know, I don't like government very much.
Amen. Can I get an amen?
I hate bureaucrats.
Yeah.
I'm kind of, I always make a joke that I'm to the right of Ted Kaczynski when it comes to antipathy to the government. Right?
We're probably going to get a YouTube strike for that. We do not support Ted Kaczynski, but I know what you mean.
No. minus the homicidal instinct.
Right. No, I know what you're saying.
But I mean, for me to just grab a hatchet and wander off into the woods and just build a place to live away from everybody, that would be no problem for me at all. Right. That was the dream. But then we ran into, both of us ended up finding out we had degenerated discs in our neck. We started having real problems with our backs and our shoulders, and realized that remote Northern Ontario was probably a poor choice because it's physically demanding, especially winter, right? It would be very brutal. And being isolated that far would probably be a mistake. So we started looking for, well, where else can we do that? At the same time, the government in Canada started, well, I'll be honest, Canada's government I've never loved a lot.
Yeah.
I was always really more in love with the way the Americans did things. I have a very kind of frontier like spirit, right? Canada's always just been full of apologists mostly, right? Like they're the go along to get along types, but I'm not like that, right? I'm a very pioneering spirit. So, and I'm a bit of a rebel. So I always identified more with Americans. So we start, when the government started kind of getting a little bit too busybody for my liking, we started saying, well, maybe we should plan for something out in another country. We'd originally settled on Italy because we wanted to travel, and Italy is the kind of a perfect location to get to many other places, right? Like Austria and Norway we wanted to see, and Germany, right? And you could travel easily between other places. And we thought, well, that's kind of perfect. You can get something in the mountains there that's reasonably cheap. The climate in kind of the middle of Italy is reasonably temperate. It still snows sometimes, but it's not really bad.
Nothing like
so we started no, nothing like that. But then we started doing research into immigration rules and how to emigrate to Italy, and they make it very, very difficult, right? And that's fine. Any country has the right to control their borders how they choose, but a lot of it was very discouraging for things like all we wanted to do was sell everything we owned, bring all our money over, and spend the rest of our life spending it there. But it's almost like they didn't want you to do that, right? Like
strange.
yeah. So we decided that probably wasn't going to work. And then COVID kind of hit too. And a lot of Italy's rules and the regulations around COVID started to look a little scary. To be fair, Canada's were scary too, but we were already stuck there. So it was sort of like, So we started looking out some more. And then my husband's never loved the idea of living anywhere tropical because he doesn't like the heat. Like he's gigantic, right? Like he's like a furnace. Just breathing creates body heat for him, right? Because he's so big. So for him, the heat's really a challenge. But when I first looked at Costa Rica, we realized that there are some places in this country that it's quite temperate. It's not, I mean, it's tropical, don't get me wrong. Look, there's palm trees back there, but we're like right now we're in the mountains, and the average temperature in this area ranges at night between, I only know Celsius, I'm sorry, but like 16 degrees Celsius and 26, 28 degrees Fahrenheit in the hottest parts of the day. And that's all year, constantly.
Nice.
Right.
Wow.
So
I would have guessed that with Costa Rica, actually. I would have thought it would have been just very hot every day, all day long.
there are places where it's intolerable. We actually just came from an area, one of the Airbnbs we stayed in, where we only stayed for a week and a half and had to leave because it's just too much. But yeah, up in the mountains, like right here, we're at about 3,600 feet in the mountains, and there's a great breeze up here. So it is pretty temperate here. And for that, as soon as we figured that out, he was like, oh, well, then maybe we could think about going to Costa Rica, right? Because Costa Rica's immigration is super easy, really easy, right? Like they just want you to spend your money here. And if you're willing to do that, they're like, okay, come on.
Awesome. Well, the backdrop's amazing. All the pictures and the little hikes and the scenery just looks amazing. I mean, I love looking at everything you guys put out. It just looks like a paradise.
It's beautiful here. I've never lived anywhere. All the time we'll be driving through the mountains and I'll just look over at my husband. I'll say, I can't believe I get to live here. I can't. So when we came down, we didn't have any firm plans, right? We came down to investigate some medical treatments for our necks, right? Because they do stem cell regeneration, like adult stem cell regeneration therapy here for degenerated discs. So we came down to look into some of that. And then Canada locked everything down, like really locked everything down, made it impossible for Canadians to travel if they didn't want to be vaccinated. And my husband's company announced that he would have to be vaccinated or lose his job. So it's been about 2 weeks now since he lost his job for that.
Okay.
So when all that started happening, we decided now it's permanent, because the truth is two things. We can't really afford to go back to Canada now. Everything's so expensive. We invested so much to come down here. But also, I'm not going to go back to where I'm going to be trapped. Like you can't leave. If you're not vaccinated, you can't leave because the US has the border closed to anybody who's not vaccinated, like the land border. I couldn't drive into New York, for example. And you can't get on a plane, a boat, or a train if you're not vaccinated within the country. So if you can't get there by car, you can't go anywhere.
That is wild. I didn't even know that. I follow politics, as you know, about 0%.
Yeah.
My friend was at a rally here the other day.
That's why you're so happy all the time.
That's very true. My buddy here, he messaged me the other day. He's like, my wife's running for some Congress or something like that. And he's like, we just saw Ted Cruz speak. And I was like, who's that? And he's like, oh, he ran for president. And I was like, oh, okay. He must be an important guy. I have no idea. I think I've heard the name time or two. But yeah, that shows how into politics I am. But that's pretty wild. One thing you touched upon that I got to comment on that I think is so funny is Canadians are apologists. So about a decade ago, I went to Vancouver for a few weeks with a couple buddies. I've been to Canada many times, and I always say Canadians are undefeated. They're the nicest humans I've never met a Canadian that's angry or unhappy. They're just nice people. They're just kind, but the joke became with my buddy, we saw a lot of the Vancouver Winter Games, and the joke became, if you're having drinks and you bump into a Canadian and it's your fault, they'll instantly say, sorry. They're just like so nice and kind, man, that like, I don't know, it's a lovely place to visit, but then it got all, dictatorship for a while, it seemed like.
It's true. It's true. And they are a lot like that. I've seen a lot of other sides too, right? Like, especially towards Americans. I have a lot of American friends, like a lot. Most of my really, really good friends are Americans. But there's a lot of people I know in Canada, neighbors, friends, family. Like American is like a curse word.
That's bizarre. Right?
Yeah. There's a lot of resentment. They're very critical. And I mean, it's kind of a passive aggressive thing, right? It's almost a Canadian identity. And I hate to sit here and just trash Canada, but the truth is, it's anybody who's being honest about it, it's true. Canadians, on average, make it their identity to be anti-American. And I think it's really just personally, I've always found it really distasteful because I don't hate any class of anybody, right?
Yeah, that's wild to me to have that mindset of like
there's American jerks, right? I've met them. It happens, right? There's Canadian jerks, but I don't ever look at a whole culture and say, Americans are all jerks.
Right.
Especially when I know so many, right, that aren't.
I always think anybody who has that mindset, whether that be, let's say, racism, because I get some hate online with my son, or things like that. I just think what they need to do is spend a day with some nice Black people. Like you're ignorant. Right? You just don't, you're stayed in your little bubble all the time. It's probably the same there with people. They just need to meet some kind American. Come hang out with me for a day, man. You'll probably like me.
Yeah. It's true. It's true. The media in Canada doesn't help because it kind of perpetuates it, and the government does too. They just love doing that, right? It's a really big thing. It blows my mind that you get hate about your little baby. He's got to be the most adorable thing on the planet. I absolutely love that baby. I can't even imagine just hating a baby because he's Black.
So weird. It blows my mind, to be honest. It's wild. I mean, we've gotten hate as well, though, there was a professor here at UNLV in Las Vegas that DM'd me many times and said, we're pushing, I don't even know how to say this, whiteness onto him, and that we shouldn't have adopted him, and that we were somehow racist for doing that. And I'm like, bro, I just love this kid. I love all my kids. We had white kids, Mexican kids. We had all different races in our house. Whoever they sent us, we said yes to. And I don't know. I feel like it was weird if we didn't say yes because he was Black. Like he's just our kid, it doesn't, I don't know, but that goes back to what you say. I think media and a lot of these elites and a lot of these people in control, they need us to be divided, right? Like I see this very clearly in America, and it sounds like Canada too. If all the people realized, hey, we have a lot more in common, and as they get us to bicker amongst each other, is Dr. Seuss racist? Is he not? Is he, all these things they're going to get us to fight about. Meanwhile, they're insider trading, and they're making $120,000 a year in Congress, but they're worth $300 million. Well, how is that a thing? Well, it's because we're down here busy fighting, right? And
that's right.
People really notice that stuff that wouldn't exist. They need to keep us that way, I think.
Definitely. A divided house always falls faster.
Yeah. I definitely think, well, this is a great segue too. That was something we wanted to talk about, and how we initially got on to wanting to have a podcast together, which I'm grateful for you coming on. Is, faith is like a centerpiece of my life. It has been for the last 4 or 5 years. And I know we have different thoughts and different things on that. And so we still love each other. It's so bizarre, right? People, like, we cannot look the same. We got different hair color. We cannot be the same as other people, but we can still love one another, respect them, meet people where they are, show kindness, show love. And so I kind of want to have you on just to demonstrate this. So can you maybe give us a 5-minute little speech about, hey, what are your beliefs? What are some of your big beliefs? And here's what, guess what, guys? Still going to love her no matter what she says afterwards. So.
Oh, you never know. It depends what I'm going to say. I'm sure there's some things I could say that would change your mind, but
yeah, I'll be honest. I'm just at a point in my life where I'm going to wish you well no matter what. And my piece is I'm going to go about having a good day. Like, what you believe doesn't really affect me. Right. So
yeah, it's true. So I'm an atheist. And I know lots of people say they're atheists and they kind of aren't, but I actually legitimately am. I used to actually be very religious back in my 20s, but I had a lot of problems, and I found that the questions I was asking, I couldn't get good answers for. And then I made a decision one day that I was going to take more. For me, religion, whenever I discussed it, and I've read the Bible a couple times, right? Like, I'm not completely ignorant of it. I've used to be very involved in my church. But I found, at least for my sake, the problems that I was going through, I felt powerless all the time. And I felt like whenever I tried to turn to my religion to give me answers or guidance, I always felt like I was kind of farming it out instead of taking ownership of it myself. So at some point, sorry, there's people wandering the property.
Get your husband on the pod. Have him come in and say hi.
He's in the house doing the dishes right now.
Oh.
So we're gonna piss off Alpha Twitter today now too.
Yeah. Those guys are the best, man. If you do a dish, your wife will cheat on you. It's like, bro, I just want to help out, man. Take it easy. those guys are
exactly.
But sorry.
So that's okay. I diverged. So the problem for me was that I just didn't feel like I was taking ownership for the things that were happening to me. And it always felt like the rules that you get told, oh, there's forgiveness to be found later and your salvation happens later. It always felt sort of like, yeah, but I want to live in the now. I want to make decisions that I have to live with instead of saying, it's okay, I'll figure it out or fix it later. It always felt like that to me, right? Like, you can ask for forgiveness later, or don't worry, when you get into heaven, it'll all be okay. But I want it to be okay now, right? And I couldn't get answers for how I was going to be able to keep the mindset that later it'll be all fine and still make choices that made my life livable now. And as soon as I made the decision, no, I'm not gonna, I didn't like ceding control of my life and my future to something that I didn't understand, which is the way God and religion was for me. You're not really supposed to understand it. Like, every doctrine I've ever heard was you have to accept it on faith. And that's fine. Lots of people are fine with that. But for me, I never was. I wanted to understand it. And if I can't understand it, I don't want to let it control the things that I do. Now, to be fair, the rules of religion, right? Like the 10 Commandments and whatnot, they're all very good rules. I live those rules. I don't lie. I don't cheat. I don't steal, right? Like, I love my neighbor. I'm faithful to my husband, right? Like, all of those rules are good rules because they make life more livable, more manageable, which is probably the biggest reason that I don't have conflicts with religious people. I have tons of my friends are really devout people, and we get along just fine because I respect that if you live your life that way, that's all I care about. There's lots of people that go to church every week or it's multiple times a week and they're complete assholes. Pardon my language. You know what I mean?
Yes,
right?
I do know what you mean. Yeah.
They cheat their neighbors, they lie to people, they sleep around on their spouse, right? Like, so the religion was never the important part for me. It was how you conduct your life, the kind of person that you are. and the kind of person that I became when I decided I was completely responsible for everything in my life, and that I had to live with all of the consequences. There was no forgiveness later. There is no heaven that I get to reward myself with later. I got to make it good right now. I got to make it good right now. I got to make it work for me. And the only way that works for me is something that works for my whole family, right? So you don't lie, because when you lie, it creates conflict. And conflict's not good for anybody, especially me. You don't cheat for the same reason, right? Like, you don't treat your neighbors like dirt, because anything that creates conflict is something that detracts from your life. So I just decided I'll go along with the rules because they work just fine for me.
You kind of take what works for you and apply that the same way. Like, I probably scroll my Twitter feed, and I might agree with something that one of these alpha guys says that I can learn from and apply, but I'm not going to agree that I should never do a dish or wash anything, or I'm a peasant man and I don't deserve to be married. Like, you know, I can take little pieces and apply those to me, right? So that's kind of your strategy.
Yeah, we do the same thing, right? Like, I believe in gender roles, right? We have a fairly reasonably traditional understanding of the way our marriage should be, but also I'm the one that drives all the time because I love to drive, right? I do the car repairs.
Twitter. My wife is handier than I am, and she drives 9 times out of 10 so that I can catch up on Twitter when she's driving. It's the only time I have without the kids where I can actually tweet a couple things and reply. So we're the same.
So it's not really a hostility to, a lot of atheists choose atheism out of a hostility to religion, I think, right? They've had a bad experience, or they feel betrayed by it. There's lots of ways that I understand where they're coming from for that, but it was never that for me. For me, I hate to make it sound flippant, because I'm not trying to make it sound flippant, but it literally ended up just being, I decided that the cheat code for how I could make myself be a good person was to not farm it out of my control.
Maybe feel guilt. Were you feeling like guilt too? I guess I don't want to put words in your mouth, but over religion, because I hear a lot of people say that, well, I couldn't be perfect, or I feel like I was always having to go to this certain thing, and maybe felt judged by people, or not.
No, not so much that. Not so much. I actually didn't have any really bad experiences with the church. I found that when I was asking myself, like, I had a very hard struggle. I've had a very difficult life, right? I've been through a lot of things. I had an abusive first husband. I had a not so great second husband, right? Like, I've been through a lot of struggles. I've been homeless a couple of times, right? Like, it's been a pretty hard run. And through the really, really hard parts of that, I've just found that for my own mindset, when I was waiting for answers from outside, which is the way religion taught me to do it, I never really did anything the right way. I didn't make good choices because I was waiting for the answers to just kind of come to me, right? When I decided that's not going to happen, that I have to take responsibility for it, I started making better choices. So it literally just became a mind hack for me that choosing God and letting that guide me from above, so to speak, just didn't work for me at all, right? Like, I wasn't a good person. I didn't make good choices, and my life was going downhill very fast, right? Like, came close to dying a few times, right? Just by poor choices. And as soon as I stopped doing that, said, no, you're responsible for what's happening. You got to be responsible for getting yourself out of it. And you can't rely on something else anymore. I decided that's going to work for me. And then when things started getting better, I revisited, right? Like, I thought to myself, well, maybe now that I've kind of figured out what the heck is, how much do I believe? Right? Like, I don't want to just throw something that's so big for so many people away. And I realized, no, I still just don't. There's some things about religion that always troubled me somewhat, right? Like, the story of Job troubles me a lot.
Yeah, that's a wild story.
It is a wild story. And I understand that there's people people who study theology, that they parse it out in ways that make sense to them. But to me, it always here's where I'm going to get, I might upset some people, but to me, it was always, you don't treat your most devout follower this way. What kind of God does that? Right? Like, do I want to trust my life to a God that will do that to the person who deserves it the least?
Yeah,
That's how
it's a fair question, and a couple of things I want to touch on here. And one, I just want to say the first thing is like, I know a lot of your story too from following you, and I just want to say like thank you. You're such a brave, kind, awesome overcomer and a champion, and like I'm inspired through a lot of the really difficult things you went through, and you've not only overcome those things, but that come out much better. And that doesn't happen by accident. That doesn't happen by, well, I'm just going to lay here and see what happens. It's a lot of work and a lot of fighting and a lot of like, and so I admire you so much for that.
Thank you.
I thank you for sharing.
Well, you too.
Yeah. I mean, we all have these struggles, right? And in life, and yeah, it's kind of what we choose in those down moments that are going to define us. But you know, another thing is you're talking here and I hear you speaking on like religion and faith. It just dawns on me that one of my favorite people is that I met on Twitter. And I love the community because I get so many different broad spectrums and views, is she's Islamic, like a devout Islamic faith. And it's not lost on me. Like if I was just born in Egypt where she was born, my views would be totally different, right? Like everything I would have been taught, everything I would have been. So I believe it's very arrogant then for me to say my way is right. And if you don't believe this, then it's very personal to me. And when I heard you kind of saying the rules and all that stuff, I'll get canceled by a lot of Christians, but like, I don't necessarily believe in, I mean, when I don't even consider myself like, this is real controversial. And maybe I'll think different in a year or two as I keep studying more, but I'm not necessarily so sure all the Bible is true. Cancel me now. But like, maybe that story of Job is like God teaching us a lesson, or somebody can lean into it at their lowest point. I don't know, because I know in certain struggles in my life and really low times, I've identified with characters of the Bible and like thought like I can lean into that strength and I can get up and overcome it and go through it because they, so, it's kind of weird for me to say, if I really believe there's a God and an intelligent designer that literally created the universe, right? Like one of our cells, one of the trillions of cells we have is more complex than anything man has built. So we're very complex beings. If I believe he designed all this, it's pretty arrogant for me to say, yeah, he gave us this book. It's all right. It's all, I know as much as he does, right? Like that would be a weird thing to say. So I just say all the time, I don't have all the answers. Like all I try and do is learn, grow. I study Jesus, and I kind of believe he lived a perfect life, whether you believe that or not. And I try and emulate that life and wake up every day saying 2 prayers. I believe there's a creator and an intelligent designer, and it ain't me. So I'm going to try and submit and live a good life, Well,
I made a decision that I was going to do my best to be a good person. And I'm totally open to the possibility that I'm completely wrong about whether or not there's God, right? It's fine. And I have lots of people that say, well, why don't you just hedge your bets and just believe anyway? Because then maybe you'll get into heaven. Well, it's a couple things about that. First of all, it's not very honest.
Right? Plus, let's be honest, if there's a God, he's probably going to know what you're doing, right? Like,
right?
I can tell if my doctor's manipulating me. You can probably tell, right?
Well, that's the thing. I have had some very serious Christians say to me, well, as if you accept God into your heart, then at least then you'll get into heaven when you die, regardless, right? And I feel like saying, but first of all, do I want to trust my life to a God that no matter, like, if I'm a good person and I live my life as a good person, following pretty much all the rules that he set for us, but when I die, he says, yeah, but you didn't believe in me, so you're going to hell. I don't think that I would want to be friends with a God like that, because it sounds pretty petty. I mean, that's just how. Yeah. And to be fair, that's how it's packaged by some of the people that I've spoken with, right? So it could just be them, right? Every person interprets God their own way, right? Who believes. So you can't attribute their feelings about it to the religion in general. I get that, right? But the fact of the matter is, these are the logical holes in these kinds of statements that I'm always wrestling with when I'm having these discussions with people. I don't want to fake it.
Yeah.
I don't believe in it. And it's not because I believe in nothing. I think the world is amazing. I think the universe is stupendously amazing. I think there's so many things about it we don't understand. And people will say to me, oh, but they treat God like a magician, right? And he's fascinating. He does all these magical things. And I say to myself, yeah, but it feels more magical to look at something like the hummingbird that buzzes behind me behind here, or a butterfly, or the way a flower blooms. It's more magical to me to look at those things and think it happens completely by accident, right? Like, it wasn't the conscious decision and design of a sentient body that's all powerful. There's nothing magical about that. If he's all powerful, he can do whatever he wants. That's not magic, right? Magic is that billions of random things collided together at some point and created something as amazing as the life that we have right now. That's magic to me. That fascinates me. I find that really compelling. And I haven't found anything in religion in all the years that I've paid more attention to it than most people that have made my choice. Respectful attention too. So it's not like I just discard it.
Yeah. Can I ask,
yeah.
What religion, like, was it Catholicism or was it like which one?
I started out, it was evangelical. So
Okay.
when I was a kid, my parents were not religious at all. When I was a kid, I asked if I could go to church. There was a church in town that I walked past all the time, and it looked interesting to me. So I asked if I could go to church. My mom was like, really? She says, sure, if you want. And my parents would drop me off. Like, they never went. They would drop me off and I'd go by myself. I think it was maybe 8 or 9 at the time. And they had a youth group that I joined. It was called the Crusaders. And I was totally into it. I really enjoyed the Sunday service every week. I went every week, right? Like, it's hard to get an 8 or 9-year-old kid on their own to get that devoted to something, but I did. I really enjoyed it. Then I broke away from it in my teens. I had a very hard teen life. And then when my son was born, my first son was born when I was 20, I started to go back. The closest church to where I lived, because I didn't have a car, was a Catholic church. So I started going there because I figured, as far as I was concerned, God was God.
Yeah.
Right? Whatever house you go to for worship, as long as you like it. I really was fascinated by the church too, right? The architecture is really, it was in an Italian neighborhood. So it was a very elaborate church. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
So that's where I kind of ended it. So I spent a couple years going regularly to that church. But that was around the time of my life when I made the decision that I was just going to leave it. Right?
Yeah.
It wasn't for me. Because you have to believe it. I don't want to fake it.
Yeah, I agree with you there. A couple things. I see why you're so successful in life. You are so curious. You always just want to know and explore. And the people that really do well at life are always they're lifelong learners and curious. They want to know why this works. I see that so much in you, and I'm like, that's why you do well at everything you do. So
not everything.
But when I go back to like religion, I actually hate the term religious. And you said Crusaders. I went to a religious high school, Lutheran high school, and I just received a second hate letter yesterday from somebody who tells me God hates me, I'm doing Christianity all wrong, and I'm going to hell, and God sees me and they know me. And this is just, and also, another experience in my life when I was first dating my wife, she was going to a Catholic church a lot. And I was, going to a Christian church and trying to figure it all out. And I went up to do communion. And I did it. And the guy said, "Are you Catholic?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, like Jesus, I'm here for Jesus. It's the same God, right?"
Yeah.
And he goes, "Well, are you Catholic?" And I was like, "Well, no, but I'm here at church, and he's like, "You're not allowed to do this." And I was like, "Yo, man, that's wild." Okay. And so I went and left. I was like, "Well, if you're not going to let me take communion, I'm not going to be a part of your thing. I don't like this, And when I started kind of asking myself some of those bigger questions that you were too, randomly just this guy that I knew that was a preacher at a big church in Springfield, I just emailed him and I asked him a lot of the same questions you were. This stuff doesn't make sense to me. You're really going to tell me that Abraham had to go out and he was going to murder his son? Like, what God tells him to murder? Like, that doesn't make sense,
Yeah.
And what happens if somebody lives a great life their whole life and they've just never, they grew up Muslim, but they served faithfully. You're just going to tell me they're going to go to eternal hell? Like, because that doesn't make sense to me,
Mm-hmm.
And this guy's so wise, and I love this guy, Eddie. He's, preacher at Westside Christian Church. He's going to come on at some point, and I learned from him a lot. And he told me, Tyler, and I hope I don't misquote him here, but he said, if any preacher, he goes, I've been studying the Bible and religion and faith all for my whole life. And he goes, if anybody tells you they have all the answers, they're just selling you something. I just have to say, when you ask me questions, I don't know. And I think that's what we have to kind of, some of the judgiest people I know, man, that I get a hate letter from, or multiple hate letters, these people that go to church every week, and they want to use that as a weapon to tell you everything you're doing wrong. And then some of the kindest people I meet are just people that I just want to live a good life, And so we go back to that at the beginning, really great people in church, really great people not. There's, really great people of all color, races, countries, everything, I don't think you can put people into just one box,
No, you can't. And that's part of my thing, right? I was like, I feel safe in my choice, because I believe that if there is a God, the only one that I would want there to exist is one that will say, you know what? You got that one really, really wrong, but you're still a good person. So we're cool about that. Right? Like, that's the kind of God that there should be. If there was one, it should be that way. The one that will condemn me to hell, no matter how I conduct myself. The rules only mean something if you live them, if you have to live them, right? You can't base your entire belief structure on something that it's kind of subjective, right? Oh, I go to church every week, so I'll be fine even if I cheat on my wife. That's not, that shouldn't be a belief system. A belief system shouldn't be structured that way. So the people that say to me, regardless of how you act, you're still going to go to hell if you don't accept God, those are the people, that's what they're telling me. That's what I hear when they say something like that. I hear, I can cheat on my wife, but I'll still go to heaven because I go to church every week.
Yeah.
That's what I hear when they say those things.
And I have no idea on this, and this is one thing I'll say I don't know, but I believe, my belief is God knows your heart. And, and that's what my preacher Eddie always told me too. Hey, I'm not the judge. I don't know, but he's like, God knows everybody's heart. And so, that's not for me I don't need to waste any mental energy on that, essentially, but it reminds me of, Gabe Pluguez.
Yes.
I love Gabe so much. And we had a similar conversation around this. And it reminds me, every time you kind of bring up that using God as a crutch or something like that, he shared a story where his father just living kind of not a great, not eating the right kinds of things, never exercising, and always being sick his whole life. He was very sick, but they would always keep praying, God, will you do a miracle? Will you save him? And both of us kind of came to that conclusion. That's very wrong. Okay, let's say you have faith. What good is it then to pray if you're not going to move your feet? I'm not going to walk out in the middle of the highway after this and just say, hey, God, save me. If you're up there, save me. Okay, I got to use some of my logic and my reasoning. Maybe I can lean in. For me, I lean into my faith a lot, and I draw on some of that strength, but I believe that strength is inside me. I believe there's a little bit of God in all of us, man. He lives in us. That's my personal belief. And so I don't need to call on this higher power or follow a bunch of rules to have access to it. I get access to it because that's my belief. Now, again, maybe I'm going to die and he's going to say, you were way wrong on that, man. And maybe in 5 years, I won't think that way. I don't know. I try and keep learning, keep reading, keep studying. I'm very curious like you are.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I'm perfectly fine if I'm wrong. I'm wrong all the time. I don't even mind admitting when I'm wrong, because that's how you learn. So the thing is, I'm not looking to be convinced either, though. I feel very comfortable where I am right now with my belief. Because to me, the thing that matters most is, can I live with myself at the end of the day with the choices that I made that day? Right. And so far that's worked for me. And religion works for a lot of people. I have a lot of friends that are very devout and they're wonderful people. You can count on them for things. They don't lie, right? Like honesty is a big thing for me. They're the kind of people you want to have around, that I want to have around. And their religion works for them. Gives them comfort. It gives them strength. It gives them solace, right? They feel more empowered by it, but I didn't.
Yeah.
I felt less empowered by it. And that could be completely on me. It's almost probably certainly completely on me, right? So there's going to be people say, oh, you turned your back on God because you had that flaw. Yes, I did. I'm willing to accept that, because to me, the most important thing was, how did I conduct myself? If not relying on God to guide me is the way that I have to be a good person, be the person that I am, then that's the way I'm going to be. That's what works for me. What works for you is fine. I care about how you are, what kind of person you are. I don't want people around me who lie. I don't want people around me who put up appearances, right? Or care about those things. I don't want people around me who suck energy from other people. Regardless of whether or not you're a Christian or a Muslim or an atheist, if you're any of those kinds of people, I just don't want you around.
Yeah.
But I'll accept anybody who's a good person, who I can trust. That's fine for me. I don't judge by religion at all. So to be fair, a lot of atheists aren't like that. A lot of atheists are hostile to religion. They're insulting.
Yeah.
They're rude. And they're very judgmental.
I would say that also goes back the other way, because a lot of Christians will look down and use there as a weapon against other people. So I think it all goes back again to that beginning thing of like,
what kind of person you are.
Yeah, we're all connected. We're all better together. Why not just, if you're a true believer, I mean, there's only two commands that Jesus really gives: love your neighbor as yourself. Who's your neighbor? Love your God with all your heart. Love your neighbor as yourself. Who's my neighbor? Everyone. And it's like, then it should be real easy, right? Like, but for some reason we get it all convoluted.
Well, the thing is, a lot of atheists, they throw God away and it leaves a hole, right? And a lot of them, they fill that hole with other things, right? Mysticism. Don't get me wrong. There's mysticism out there that's worth looking at, right? Some of it can be valuable, but they also fill it with other things, right? Like political action, right? Like
say politics and COVID. I actually saw people replace it with that, which is bizarre to me.
But the problem is, it's not the religion that's the problem for people like that. The problem for people like that is all psychological. Those are people that have holes in their psyche and they seek to fill it with something. Some people fill it with religion, right? But the problem is, those people, they have holes that need filling, and that their trauma. Sometimes it's resentment that they haven't been able to let go of. There's lots of reasons but it's about the person. It's not about the religion or the religious choice that they make, right? So that's why I think a lot of atheists, their hostility is about the fact that they have that hole and they feel betrayed because when religion can't fill it. So they get angry about it and they get resentful, and they get resentful at people that they see who don't have that experience, right? Like somebody like yourself who's perfectly happy with Jesus, right? Your life is great. You feel good and confident. And somebody who didn't get that from religion gets angry about it and they get resentful. So a lot of atheists don't do, I hate to say the movement, because it's not really it's not really a movement, right? Yeah. But a lot of atheists don't do the term justice, because they're not choosing atheism, they're choosing nihilism. It's not the same, but it looks the same to a lot of people. A lot of my religious friends feel like it's the same thing. I've seen things on Twitter from people I have a lot of respect for and get along with. And the thing is, I don't argue my atheism to a lot of people, right? Like, because I'm not that kind of atheist. For me, I'm all you do you. But every once in a while, I will see something on Twitter from some friends that I respect where they'll say atheists and they'll say something really kind of rude. And I'm like, Well, yes, some atheists are like that, but some Christians are like that too. You're not talking about atheism now, you're talking about mental illness, right?
Right.
And so sometimes I'll speak up. I don't like to be that person that contradicts everybody all the time, but sometimes I'll speak up because I'll be like, yeah, but you and I are fine all the time, right? And I'm an atheist, so there's a flaw in your logic somewhere.
Right.
Maybe you should explore that. Maybe you're making assumptions that are wrong.
That's very wise to point out, I think, and something that we could all learn from and get better from. It's again, I go back to people that, there's a fascinating story that I studied about a year or two ago. This man, he was African-American guy, and he actually befriended guys of the KKK. Have you ever heard about this guy?
Yes, I have.
Amazing. He ends up basically disseminating an entire village of KKK members just because they hang out with them. They go grab lunch. They become buddies. They fix cars with it. Like, they just realize he's a great guy, and it's like, I think the Christians that are sitting there judging, yelling, all atheists, all agnostics, all Jewish people, all Muslims, like, dude, if you just go and meet some of these people, I mean, I kind of think maybe I'm like too much of a hippie in this, but like, I think we'd never have war if we just let a lot of the Russian soldiers hang out with a lot of the Ukrainian soldiers for about a week, and we had a little mixer, and I could throw a fun party, and we could all hang out and bring our kids and realize we all kind of want the same stuff, Quit letting these 1% of people divide us and tell us we all should hate each other. Dude, we all want the same stuff, like, I want my family to be happy. I want to have peace of mind. I want health. I want prosperity. I want a good life. Like, everybody wants the same stuff. So do you, but we just can't get out of our little pea brain sometimes and quit putting people in boxes,
Yeah. Well, it's like the Christmas truce, right? The Christmas truce during World War II.
I've never heard of this.
What? Oh my God, really? Come on. No, you've heard this story. Okay, so I'm going to get some of the details wrong, but World War II. Yeah, the Germans and the Allies, they're fighting across the front, but it was Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. I can't remember which. And they kind of came out of the trenches and they sat together and they spent the evening together, drinking, playing cards. It was Christmas.
No,
they all missed their families. They all hung out together. The Germans and the Allies together.
Whoa.
They spent the evening that way in a truce, and then the next day they went back to fighting.
See, here's my thing.
Sabaton,
how do you
band,
go back to fighting after that?
Well,
like, once you know that guy,
that's their job. That's what they're there for. That's their job, right?
It's a bigger issue.
But the band Sabaton has a great song about it. You should look it up on YouTube. Sabaton, the Christmas truce. The video shows like representation of it. Look it up. It's fabulous. It's a great story about how it's possible.
Thank you. I'm going to spend the next 3 years of my life going down this rabbit hole, and I'll know everything about this in a few weeks. This is at my brain where I get curious too. So I appreciate that.
But it's like that's what you're talking about, right? Is that is possible. And that's the way I feel about it. When, like I said, when I see somebody tweet something, all atheists have holes in their soul, right? I see something like that and I feel like saying, well, how would you feel if I tweeted all Catholics are child molesters?
Right. Yeah.
Like, I would never tweet that. I would never say that because it's not true.
Right.
Because it's wrong. Well, yeah, because it's wrong and it's rude.
Yeah.
But some religious people feel it's okay to say things like that.
My thing is, like, how do you think that's also going to get people into church? like, I'm in Vegas.
Very persuasive.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And I'll go meet a buddy about once every few weeks, and we'll just walk the strip and grab a bite, and it never fails. There's a guy on there with a bullhorn yelling, "You're going to hell." And I'm like, bro, what are you thinking? Like, somebody's going to be walking by tipsy and be like, "This guy's right, man. I got to get into church." It's like, dude, right? What are you like? This isn't the way, like, I don't know.
Browbeating is not a very good motivator.
No, it's I don't know. Yeah, some that always I always like. I'm actually at some point gonna pull him aside and be like, brother, let's have a 5-minute like heart to heart. Like, so this actually I'm gonna do this with him at some point because I see the same guy out there all the time.
So that's the thing, right? You can't make assumptions necessarily, and you can by the way they act, right? If you have somebody that leaves comments saying, "Oh, well, what you believe is a stupid fairy tale for children, right? Like that's rude too.
Yeah.
Right. Now,
Sure.
I never took the Bible literally, so that was never a complication for me. I always took it like Grimm's fairy tales, right? They're cautionary tales meant to teach you a lesson. They are metaphorical. So I never had the complication of trying to work out in my head how everything literally worked in the Bible, right?
Yeah,
But
I don't necessarily believe that everything's literal either, for sure.
yeah, but a lot of people get caught up in that, right? A lot of atheists get caught up in that. They're like, well, if it's not literally true, then it's got to be all lies.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
you can go one way or the other.
There it goes back to Twitter too. I learned from some guys who also post, if you ever eat like any kind of vegan stuff, you're like this or that. And I'll be honest, there's a vegan taco place here that I freaking like. Like I eat it like once every couple months, man. They have these fish tacos and make these big margaritas. And sometimes we go there on a date night. I'm not vegan. I eat meat every single day, but I like them for some reason, man. I went there once with a buddy and I like the place, and it's take my man card again, but it's like, again, you can't do all or nothing. And there's so many, this polarization now of all or nothing. You either got to be all this or all that. And it's bizarre to me, but like people like you, and I think us having conversations like that, it gives me hope that, dude, we can all live great lives, try and get better each day, be our best self, show kindness, meet people where they are, and just, like root for everybody. Like, I hope you have the freaking greatest day of your life. I hope you and your husband have I hope the house becomes just like the homestead is amazing. I can't wait to see more content around that. And like, I just wish you guys nothing. Like, why would I not? It doesn't make sense to me why I would not, just because we might disagree or not see eye to eye on everything. That doesn't make sense to me.
That's why I like you. And I want to share something. I saw something the other day. My good friend, Billy Redhorse, the gentleman mystic. I don't know if you follow him.
I don't know. That doesn't sound familiar. I'll check.
Oh, you should. He posted something that actually really resonated with me that I thought would be perfect to share on here, because it kind of encapsulates how I feel about things. Okay. If you don't mind, I hope he doesn't mind that I'm sharing it. He says, when you start operating from the knowledge that there's no moment more important in life than this moment, things will begin to change for you. You will be more forgiving, yet more demanding. Time becomes more important. That greatest gift you are no longer willing to squander. And that, when I read it, that's exactly how I feel. My time here is limited. I don't get, in my mind, I don't get a forever after when I die. So I got to make this one count. I got to make it worth it. I got to make it worth it for me and for everybody around me. So that's how I live my life.
Well, I very much respect you. I respect all your views. And I really do. I mean this from the bottom of my heart. You're just the kind of person who you're moving and your first thought is like, oh, Ty has like 97 children. Maybe I can send him. He's got new kids in every week. I'm going to send him a bunch of, and it's like the nicest thing, And I remember like we got that nice letter from you. And like every time we pull out our games now, we think about you. And I'm just super grateful for our friendship and, everything you put out into the world means a lot to me. So thank you very much.
I couldn't even tell you how glad I was, how happy you guys are to have this. Family game night was probably one of my favorite things with our children. It was a big deal for us. We always sat down for dinner, and every couple of nights we sat down and did family game night. And some of my favorite memories are playing those games. And we still love playing board games. We just don't have all the kids around anymore, but it didn't feel, I know if I just handed it off to like the secondhand store, eventually they would have made their way somewhere, but I really wanted, those things were so important to my family. I really wanted to go somewhere where they were going to get loved. So I felt amazing. I felt amazing sending those to you, because I was like, I know this family is going to get from it the same thing that my family got from it. So it was I'm gonna cry a little.
There's actually been a couple nights just recent that last week, I think I shot you a picture. Me and my wife and daughter played a game, and as we were tucking my daughter into bed, my wife and I said, it's never gonna get better than this. Like this is just like heaven, man, for us to sit here and play this board game with our daughter and laugh and smile and joke around, see her light up that she tricked daddy and mastermind, and all these. It's just so fun, I am super grateful for you. And that even goes to a bigger topic of you giving made you feel good. And when I give you a compliment, it makes me feel good. And when we help each other, it makes us feel good. And maybe we all just like focus on living life like that a little bit more, and what an amazing world it would be,
It's true. I'll credit that attitude. I haven't always had that attitude, actually. I used to have the kind of cookie cutter attitude that lots of people make the mistake of having, that it's only virtuous if it's selfless. But I'm a huge Ayn Rand fan. I've read everything she's ever written. And The Virtue of Selfishness, which is one of her books, full of essays about why charity is selfish, but it's not a bad thing that it is. Because why wouldn't you do something that makes you feel good? If it helps other people and helping other people makes you feel good, it's okay to accept that.
Right.
But you don't need to feel guilty about it, about feeling good about that.
It's literally a cheat code in life. If you understand that, life gets so good. And in fact, just a few days ago, I talked to my buddy afterwards, but I got like 2 hours of sleep one night. We had a sick kid here. This is a week or two. Usually. And so I'm like trudging to the gym, and I'm feeling like it's one of those days where like, oh my gosh, this is good. I'm tired. And so I actively paused and I said, you know what? As soon as I get into the gym, I'm gonna start making other people's day. And so I literally went into the gym. I thanked the guy, gave him a high five for working so early in the morning. I found a guy that I see in the weight room routinely for a year straight. We've never talked. And I just pulled him aside and I said, hey brother, I don't want to interrupt your workout, but man, I see you in here every day for a year. You've lost like 40 pounds. You're getting after it. And I just appreciate everything you put in, man. You're making me going to go harder today because I'm a little tired. Dude, then he gives me a big bear hug and we chat for a couple of minutes. And then I got energy and it raised my vibration a little bit. And I realize now life is rigged like that. When I feel down, I'm going to call somebody and tell them I love them. I'm going to go do something kind for people because that's how you get back on track. It's not sitting there thinking about selfish, how can I feel better? Okay, I'm going to go bless somebody else and I'm going to feel better. That's just
costs you almost nothing.
Free. Yeah, it's amazing,
I'll walk down the street, and if a lady's walking past me and I really like her dress, she's a total stranger, I'll stop her and I'll say, I really love your dress. And her face will light up.
Yes.
Right? I'm a total random stranger, but she'll remember that an hour later and she'll feel good about it. And I'm not doing it because it's fake. It's real.
Love her dress. Why not tell her?
If you think it, say it.
Yep.
Right? If it's a nice thing and you think it, you should say it, because it will never make somebody's day worse.
That's right.
And it costs you nothing at all to do. That's part of the reason that it feels good. I have almost no shame and almost like very little pride, like the kind of pride that interferes in you doing good things, right? I don't have any of that. So it's no problem at all for me to go up to a random stranger and like do what you did, right? Some people they'll be too nervous or ashamed to do that, but I don't have that problem.
I
don't feel any shame.
If that guy tells me you're weird, I'll be like, okay, man, still have a good day.
Whatever.
Have a good day.
You're welcome.
Yeah. With some of the age comes a lot of that. Like, it just doesn't bother me if what people think about me. And I think for you too, building a big platform online too, like I see some of the hateful things people say, right? Like at you, at me, at other people, like it's just, dude, if you're going to let that stuff bother you, you're going to have a miserable life. Like you just gotta let it roll off. I mean, even last night, my wife spent 6 hours in the ER with our son, and he gets released and comes out. And my wife's just, she's literally trying to contain a screaming 30-pound ball of anger for 6 hours. She's stressed, and she walked to get a little food, and some random guy, just nice dude, comes up and she said she thinks he can see her kind of struggling, and just said, hey, I hope you have a great day, and your hair looks really pretty, or something like that. Oh. She said it just like made her day. And, my response was tell the guy thanks and I'll fight him, but you know what I mean? It's like, we can all, if we just all live life like kind of in that way, and we stop putting people in these boxes and just, how can I help other people? That's the world I envision for my kids and for the future. And I see you creating that too. And so I'm super grateful to share the journey with you, Ginger.
Yes, me too. I always feel really grateful that I found you, because you're literally one of my favorite people on Twitter.
Right, I appreciate it.
It's never anything negative from you, even when sometimes you share some of the hate that you get. And I feel bad about that, but mostly I feel bad for the people that are saying it, because, and I mean, like our YouTube channel, sometimes I'll share some of the hate that I get, on my Twitter, but I share it because it's comical to me. Like, I'm like, dude, this is a channel that shares music, right? We're not like solving the world problems here. Why don't you just relax?
It's me and my husband's views on songs. Like, right, like, if you're gonna
Like,
go to another channel too.
what kind of life do you have that this troubles you?
Right.
Like, I feel sorry for you that you're this kind of person. It's got to be terrible to wake up and be you. Right.
That's what I always go back to is like, it's gotta suck, man. I mean, like getting a second hate letter, like I literally opened that yesterday and I was like, oh man, like, and I kind of have an idea in my head who it might be. And I'm like, I just like get a hobby, get a positive, like a good hobby is not like stewing on how mad you are about other people. Like it kind of just, that's the only part of it that makes me sad is like somebody will literally be taking their most precious asset, what you just read, that beautiful tweet. You're not going to get these days back, right? And somebody's sitting there in the comments angrily telling you that that song's not even good. You shouldn't be highlighting. Just a walk, man. Put on a song you do like do a little yoga, do some breath work, go lift, go tell somebody you love them. Like it's a million other things you can do to have a good day, you know? Why not go do one of those?
It blows my mind that you get hate. Like if for me, I'll be honest. Okay. I can be kind of mouthy sometimes. And like, I'm not always nice. Like you package me as this really nice person, but like, if I catch somebody doing something wrong, like, I've written letters that could paint peel off a car. Right? Like I can be very scathing. I'm usually fair, right? Yeah. It's usually something actually really awful that you've done that I'll be scathing about, but I won't hold back, right? I'll tell you exactly how I feel. So I can be, some people don't like me, right? And there's sometimes they have a good reason, right? And sometimes I delve into topics that are kind of controversial, right? Politics always is. Yeah, so I understand some of the hate I get. I don't understand any of the hate you get, man. Yeah. I really don't.
Just goes back to a projection, right? Like if I say something and I always preclude it, like, hey, this works for me, it might not work for you. But when I say like, hey, we canceled Netflix and TV 29 months ago. Our family's never been happier. Maybe you should try go 1 week without TV and see if you enjoy it better. And maybe not, like maybe it doesn't work for you, but like it did for me, maybe just try it. But somebody somewhere is going to be like, this arrogant prick thinks that because I watch Netflix, I'm a bad, it's like a reflection of them, you know, like, again, they have a hole somewhere in them. And like, again, I never say I have all the answers the right way. I found some things that work for me to live a good life and I'm going to share them. And if some of them work for you, that's cool. If they don't, that's cool too. I'm still going to wish you well, but like, it's people are out there. Some of them, we're going to keep on loving them regardless. That's what we're going to keep doing.
Well, you can love them.
Yeah. Love them from a distance sometimes though too, right?
I'm just gonna block them.
Yeah, I've blocked 900 and some people, and I just went through Facebook and blocked a bunch of people now too. Oh. So we'll see, you know. But I need to wrap up. I could probably chat with you for about 7 more hours and keep laughing. My cheeks are starting to hurt from some of the laughter. I appreciate you coming on so much. You know, I get to play with my boys here for a little bit and send them off here, and then I got another client call, so I'm gonna have to hop off. But any last words? I appreciate the invitation.
Yeah, stay tuned for my homesteading videos. I'm very excited.
And again, guys, I'm going to link everything Ginger does below. She is awesome. Her and her husband are hilarious. And I forgot, a lot of your DIY stuff is amazing. I should be watching this. My wife will watch this podcast and be like, you know what, you need to fix that. Go get Ginger's video, because there's some good stuff on there. So I'm going to link everything she does below, guys. And you know what, above all else,
find yourself some good music, cook yourself some good food, and snuggle up with somebody warm and nice, right? That's the best life could ever get. Right? If I feel like trash, I'll go cook something. I'll put on some music and I'll cook something. It works like magic to make your life better. Awesome. People need to do that more.
Yeah. Find what works for you. Go do more of it. Go find what makes you happy and go do more of it, you know? Yeah. So guys, I appreciate it. This has been episode, I believe 32, could be 33. I'm not sure. But Tyrompers No Limit podcast. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Go be kind to others. Go be kind to yourself. Let's all live a great on fire life. Pick everybody up and bless up. You go have the greatest day of your life. Thanks for tuning in.